Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, temperatures right now across the U.S., across the central U.S., a bit cool. In the mid-Mississippi Valley, the eastern Corn Belt, we've got 50s, not very humid, a cool, crisp morning here with warmer and more humid air filtering up across the central and northern plains. We've got upper 60s and low 70s to be found there. That is why the thunderstorm activity is going to be found well off to the west and across the upper Midwest over the next 48 to 72 hours, where we've got a little bit of moisture, but again, continuing to be quite dry across the eastern Corn Belt down into parts of the central and southern plains. So we look at the radar right now, we've got a couple decaying areas of showers and storms across the western Dakotas, another one here across parts of southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, into parts of west central Wisconsin, another decaying cluster of storms down here across parts of northern Kansas as well, but this is pretty weak and lackluster thunderstorm activity and shower activity, very disorganized hit or miss rain activity coming up and over the top of that ridge. And you can really see the ridge spin away as we look at the last 72 hours of precipitation. You can see the flow coming around the top of that ridge. And again, with it really just, I don't know what word I'm looking for to kind of describe the environment across the Corn Belt right now, but it's just generally stale, lacking upper level support, not real deep in terms of moisture, so it's not very unstable, not very much upper level support, so we're just getting these kind of disorganized and really unimpressive thunderstorm clusters coming up and over the top of that ridge. Now we do have the chance for additional thunderstorms here across parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa over the next 72 hours. A couple of those could be strong. We could see a couple strong storms across parts of the high plains producing some hail as well, but generally quiet conditions across the Corn Belt as far as real heavy rain and severe weather goes over the next, again, few days. So we'll look at the severe weather outlook here for today. This will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from the Storm Prediction Center. Again, just keeping a marginal risk in place across the upper Midwest, parts of the high plains. Today it's across the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Tomorrow confined to the upper Midwest. And then on Sunday we'll shift it back to the west, parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, down into Wyoming, and far northwest Nebraska. Now, as we take a look at the upper level pattern, this kind of explains where we're at right now. We have a ridge out west, this big trough across parts of the mid-south and the southeast. And that's what's helped kind of pull some of this cooler and less humid air down into the eastern and central portions of the Corn Belt, allowing the heat to build across the western U.S., some of that starting to make its way into the northern plains. Now, as I take all the drawings I've just done off of the map and then show you where we're headed, we do have some change to talk about as we head into the 5 to 10 day time frame. Now, as we head through the weekend into early next week, we're going to see that trough across the mid-south and the southeast begin to kind of fade, such that we see the ridge expanding across the central U.S. That's going to allow some of that heat to make its way into the central Corn Belt, allow parts of the upper Midwest and the mid-Mississippi Valley here to start warming back up and see a period of 90s as we head into the early part of next week. But we're also going to watch for a series of troughs to make their way up and over the top of this ridge here. And we're going to build a bigger trough across parts of the Hudson Bay down to the Great Lakes as we get into the end of August, the first few days of September. Let me show you what this looks like. Now we're starting to flatten the ridge as we get into, or you can follow along up here. We're all the way to August 25th and 26th. So this is getting out there a bit. We're seeing that ridge again over the central part of the country. We should be quite warm then across the midsection of the U.S. as we get into the early and middle part of next week. But then here we go. We're getting into the end of next week, into next weekend, the last few days of August, the first few days of September. This is when I'm the time frame I'm building in my head here as I kind of watch the trends here, the narrative that's starting to come clear. Again, I'm going to take this out just maybe 24 hours or so here. There we go, right about to August 29th. And again, you see the flow coming up and over the top of that ridge around the base of this trough here. So this would be something that would open the Gulf of Mexico back up, get some warmth into the midsection of the country, but then bringing that shear, bringing the flow back south out of the Canadian prairies into the Corn Belt. That should set us up into a pattern that's much more favorable for robust, organized thunderstorm activity across the midsection of the country. Now, of course, this is looking out into the 7 to 10 day time frame, so let's watch this trend, let's watch this evolution together as we head through it. The other thing that becomes clear, we're dealing with, I mentioned how the ingredients when we talk about moisture, instability, and upper level support being the big driving factors in organized severe thunderstorm activity and really heavy rainfall potential. This is the moisture plot. This is where we're looking at precipitable water. So generally, we're talking about if you look straight up through the column of the atmosphere, how much moisture could be wrung out there. And again, you see this big corridor, this big void, real dry air across the midsection of the country thanks to that trough across the region. The real deep moisture you can see down here where you got the red shading across the Gulf of Mexico. So watch what happens as we head through the next few days. We're going to take this through the weekend into early next week. We're into Sunday and Monday, keeping it, not dry, but we're talking about dew points in the mid-60s, which is not unbearable. It's not that humid for this time of year, but check it out. We've got a couple tropical systems across the Gulf that are going to be lifting northward, and as we get rid of that trough across the region, we're going to open the Gulf of Mexico back up. So here you see it. We're getting into August 25th, 26th. We're getting into the middle part of next week. So we're not that far out into the future at this point. And we're seeing good agreement between, I'm showing you the European model. The GFS has the same thing. Check it out. As we get into the end of next week now, August 27th, 28th, we have once again opened the Gulf of Mexico back up for business. We've got a warm, at times it could be hot and muggy across the midsection of the country, then across the central and eastern Corn Belt. And then you remember we're starting to flatten the jet stream out and bring that stronger flow back into the region. So there are our ingredients. We've got now, as we get into the last few days of August, a much more deeper moisture profile. We got much more in the way of instability, and we should have much more in the way of upper level support and strong jet stream flow. So I'm gonna avoid the specifics for now, but again, that's the timeline that's going clear to me here. Generally quiet next 5 days or so, but as we get to the end of next week, the last days of August, the first few days of September, we could be headed for a bit of a change. Quickly, here's the temperature trend. Again, cooler air across parts of the eastern Corn Belt right now down into the mid-south with that trough in place. Again, we start to get rid of that little trough across the south. That's going to allow things to warm back up as we kind of broadly expand that ridge before we see the pattern change. So look for some heat as we head into the early to middle part of the next work week. And then as we get into the later part of the week, as we start to see some changes here. This is what kind of gives me some concern here for a much more active and stormy pattern across parts of the Corn Belt. Again, cooler to the northwest, warmer here. This is warm and humid air. And then with the jet stream support coming through the area, we'll have to watch out for those thunderstorm activity or that resumption of thunderstorm activity. So let's look at week 1, week 2, August 21st through the 27th. Again, where's the jet stream? Well off to the north. We've also got this little trough, this little system across the mid-south. So Kentucky and Tennessee continuing to see thunderstorm activity along and south of the Ohio River Valley. It could be quite stormy over the next several days. But then as we head into week 2, this is when we start to make some changes. We've got the Gulf of Mexico opened up again. We are hot, humid, and unstable across the midsection of the country. Not only that, we've got the jet stream returning as well. All of the ingredients once again in place for periods of storminess across the midsection of the country as we get into the end of August, the beginning of September. So let's put it all together. We'll show you some specifics, the high-resolution NAM model as we take it through the weekend. Again, watching first some scattered storms across parts of the upper Midwest as we head through Saturday and Sunday. Later this afternoon as well. It's really a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. Again, disorganized thunderstorm activity producing perhaps some gusty winds and some isolated large hail. Not much in the way of real robust thunderstorm activity expected here. Again, here's the total precipitation forecast accumulation from the high-resolution NAM model. Taking it through Sunday afternoon. And again, you just see this little area here, parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, picking up hit or miss precipitation there. Someone could pick up an inch here, but generally, again, going to be looking for some gusty winds, some large hail, and some isolated downpours as we head through the next few days. Taking it a bit further with the European model, we can see the same thing. We've got some thunderstorm activity across parts of the upper Midwest as we head through today and tomorrow. As we get into Sunday, we'll shift things back to the west, watching for thunderstorms to flare up Sunday afternoon and evening across parts of the western Dakotas down into Wyoming and far northwest Nebraska. We're then going to take this one into, let's take it all the way into Monday, keeping things relatively quiet. Tuesday, still relatively quiet thunderstorm activity well off to the north. It really is a quiet next 5 to 7 days. At this point, we're going to be building that heat back into the midsection of the country, priming things for a resumption of our active pattern. And here we go as we get into the end of next week, around August 27th, 28th, perhaps bringing a more active thunderstorm complexes or more active storm systems, and as a result, more in the way of thunderstorm activity across the Dakotas, down into the Great Lakes, the central and eastern Corn Belt. Again, late next week, the last few days of August into early September. Before then, The next 5 days, so taking it through August 26th, that would be Wednesday, we're looking at the probability of picking up a half an inch of precipitation or more. You're going to have to head well off to the north to find those higher probabilities across northern Wisconsin, the north woods of Minnesota there. Otherwise, head off to the south along and south of the Ohio River Valley. You could pick up some heavy rainfall there as well across Kentucky and Tennessee, and maybe far southern Ohio. Otherwise, a big dry void here as we head through the next 5 days from the northern plains into the central plains, the southern plains, all the way east across the mid-Mississippi Valley into the eastern Corn Belt. For those who just want to see the raw precipitation output here from the European, the operational run, again, same thing. Hit or miss thunderstorm activity, some clusters of storms producing some gusty winds and some locally small hail across the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Iowa, and then you have to head off to the south, otherwise Kentucky and Tennessee, down into the southeast and parts of the Gulf Coast. Let's finish with a look at those high temperatures then over the next 5 days. Again, cooler as you head off to the south with warmth expanding across the northern plains and the upper Midwest. We're going to start to see those cooler temperatures off to the south begin to fade. We'll see 90s resuming across the midsection of the country into the eastern Corn Belt as we get into Monday and Tuesday. And again, this signals the return to a hot and humid air mass across the midsection of the country, awaiting the return of the jet stream late week for a possible resumption of a much more stormy and active pattern across the Corn Belt. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you all again on Monday morning.